Hello, welcome to another briefing. So in this briefing, I'm going to start out per usual with the satellite image. I like to see what's going on with the atmosphere right now before we just dive into model guidance. And we can see there is a big trough of low pressure, this is upper level low pressure out over the centered over British Columbia, but we have that trough extending down into the west coast. This is quite a pattern change compared to a few weeks ago when we had this big warm high pressure big heat dome over us. That is shifted. That is over the plains right now. I can put that right here. That's where that is. So you can see that shifted well to the east. The core, all that heat is way east of us now. And that allowed much cooler air to come in from the Gulf of Alaska. It is not super cold air because it's still August, but much cooler air than we had. It's even a bit below average in many areas, even though that below average can still be 90s to 100 in many areas in California, but it is cooler than typical for this time of year. And so what we're seeing this do mainly is deepen the marine inversion layer along a lot of the Pacific Northwest coastline and also, of course, in California, pretty much most of the way down the coastline. You do have more of a push of ocean stratus each morning, and then depending on the direction of the winds, you're going to have that stratus clearing out, especially during the daytime. For Southern California, we have that happening because seems like we have, because of the positioning of this low, and there might be some kind of surface low associated with it. The winds are most likely more southerly here, so that's why that fog deck is being pushed more towards the north. Now let's go ahead and focusing in on the Bay Area where I'm based, where I tend to focus on. We can see that stratus. I'm just going to play back what's been going on with the fog this morning, and you can see there is a south wind to the southwest wind off of our coastline as well, because you can see the fog is going into the south-facing valleys and south-facing mountains and areas here. South Marin, Petaluma, Santa Rosa, these areas getting shrouded with stratus clouds this morning. Some of these areas might not clear today if we have a continuous feed of stratus clouds, although if the winds do relax enough, we will probably have some clearing in the afternoon for most areas. But this is a kind of situation where South Marin sometimes does not clear all day, and the parts of Petaluma and Santa Rosa as well, that can also happen under this pattern. With the south flow. Meanwhile, areas like Half Moon Bay will clear out quite early because you have sort of a downsloping flow effect off of these mountains because of the terrain south of Half Moon Bay here. The fog gets directed outwards over the water rather than into Half Moon Bay. Monterey area, you tend to clear out more during southerly flow events. It is still overcast in Monterey right now, but I do believe they might clear. They have a better chance of clearing today compared to Santa Cruz, because Santa Cruz, it's going to be facing south. It's right in that feed of stratus. For Santa Cruz to clear, you need a northwest wind, and that's the same kind of wind that helps Marin County clear out. And unfortunately for Half Moon Bay, that it does bring in stratus. For SF, it brings stratus. So you're seeing the opposite of that today with the south flow. You're seeing more clouds into Marin, more clouds into Santa Cruz, but less clouds into Half Moon Bay, less clouds into SFO. San Francisco East Bay even seeing very little in the way of cloud cover from Stratus today. There are some mid-level clouds to speak of. These clouds out here over the Sierra. These are associated with the upper level moisture, and that's bringing scattered showers and thunderstorms mainly to the mountain areas of mostly southern and central California today. And if you look at the bigger picture here, that is wrapping around the western edge of the high pressure center that's over the southern plains right now. And you have a lot of moisture wrapping around that. Some of that is even making its way into parts of California here. So let's go ahead and look at the, this is what we call a sounding. I know it's very complex, but it shows you very well where the top of the inversion layer is here for the Bay Area, where you have a cold marine inversion below very warm dry air. You have seen this. I'm just going to show you where I'm putting this purple marker here. That's about 2,500 feet up. This is data from a balloon, weather balloon that goes up twice a day and gets all sorts of critical information, including temperature and dew point. And you can see from 2,500 feet down to the surface, you can see roughly, this would be roughly 1,800 feet or so. There's a top of that inversion layer where the air stops dropping with height. There's a mixed layer within that inversion where you have the temperature and the dew point really close to each other. You have very likely low clouds, marine stratus clouds in this zone right here. And then look at how dry and warm it is right above that. That's your marine inversion right there. And so we can see where the marine inversion is based on looking at that, like how deep it is. You can also look at cameras, which I can show in a sec. This is just a station observations, temperature in black, and then you have the wind gust in red, and you have the wind direction shown for the wind barbs here for the Bay Area, and you can see that south flow that I was talking about clearly present, especially along the coastline. Let's go ahead to, let's take a look. I'm going to take a quick detour here because I want to show you this camera from Mount Tamalpais in South Marin, and you can clearly see this fog, this ocean stratus coming in. And that's a pretty deep layer. I mean, the top of this mountain is 2,500 feet, so yeah, I would say this is about 2,000 feet. Moving on now to computer model guidance. Now always keep in mind this is just computer model guidance. This is what the computer models that we look at are estimating to happen based on the current conditions as we best understand them. Any little change in these conditions over time will result in different weather conditions, especially as you go further out in time on these model projections. So let's always keep that with a grain of salt. This is not a forecast. This is computer model guidance. So what we see on the models, what the pattern that we see the model wanting, particularly this model, the European model, wanting to put out, and the other models that I looked at are in agreement with this as well, is this big troughing here. This persistence of this troughing as we go in through the late in this week, which is going to bring cooler than average air columns, cooler than average air, nothing super cold by any means, but it'll be comfortable for a lot of areas that were absolutely baking in the last few weeks. Some good relief here. And you can see that the center of all that heat has shifted well to the east. It'll be moving from the plains even into the southeast states here. So, as we put this into motion here, you can see also cooler air, by the way, in the northeast. You can see there's a bit of a trough off of the coast of the northeast there, and that's helping things stay relatively cool. And then you can see it'll probably warm up again as that trough kind of lingers as we go through this weekend through the west coast. And then you can see this nice cooler pattern with like deep marine layers, strong push of marine clouds each morning near the coast, and just more of a cool breeze making its way all the way inland, which will help keep those temperatures much cooler. So you're seeing basically a cooler than average pattern for much of the western United States, especially the Bay Area and California over the next week or so. And then this particular model wants to put some ridging, some high pressure back into back into play as we go into the late part of next week. And depending on how this sets up, if we get a little bit of a wind shift from a west wind to a north wind or even a northeast wind at or near the coast, that could mean some really, really warm weather all the way to the coast. We'll have to see how that plays out. Usually that kind of thing doesn't start happening until mid to late September. Late September, early October is when we usually have more coastal heat waves here in the Bay Area. But it's something we could start to watch as these little troughs start making their way across the northern tier, across British Columbia into the Intermountain West. You get on the back end of those troughs and you can get some of that north wind. So something to watch because we see a warming air mass as we go into the late part of next week there, and that could actually be some big heat. And it looks like the center. Ugh, I mean, this particular model, take it with a grain of salt. We're looking over a week out, but this particular model wants to put a center of upper level high pressure right over Northern California, including the Bay Area here. I mean, if this plays out, and if we get offshore wind, this could be close to this could be some bad heat. I'm not gonna hype this up too much because or sound the alarm because we're looking a ways out on one model. See, let's compare this to the GFS, for example. See, you can't put all your bets on one model because look at the GFS model showing something completely different, showing more of a trough. This would be actually more continued cooler weather. I mean, the Canadian model doesn't go out as far, but let's go back a little bit and let's look at the Canadian model also wants it a bit cooler. So, I'm seeing 2 out of 3 models trend cooler, and now I start to think we might actually have a persistence of a cooler pattern, maybe no heat wave for late August, but I'll keep an eye on it because the European model a lot of times is right. And so still give some credit to it. And we'll watch this. We'll see. This could mean a heat wave into the west coast, maybe even Pacific Northwest as well. Could be under the gun. I mean, look at this thing. This is way out, but if this were to verify, that's concerning. I look at this and I'm concerned. But we're looking way out. It's one model. Take it with a grain of salt. Anyways, blab, blab, blab. I've blabbed on for too long already. So, I'll just show you this. Anyone that wants to leave can leave. But these are the temperatures, temperature projections here for the next few days. Let me try to get today on there. So here's today. You're looking at nice and comfortable Pacific Northwest, upper 70s, maybe just about 80 for some locations in the western Washington, western Oregon area. Even eastern Washington and eastern Oregon, maybe up to 90 for some areas. Pretty pleasant. You're looking at pretty seasonable temperatures for this time of year for most of the west coast, maybe even a little below average for some areas. particularly if you're near the coast, I would say. We go into tomorrow, even cooler. Tomorrow is where it really starts to feel much cooler for a lot of places like Sacramento, even maybe not even hitting 90. It's the high of 86 in Sacramento in August. That's pretty mild. Some of the Southern California deserts might barely hit 100 degrees, which is also very mild for this time of year. And you see here, Friday, continue kind of that cooler pattern. Saturday, Sunday, Monday starts to heat up a little bit, but it's still maybe close to average, not quite above average, not hot by any means. As far as how hot it can get, it'll be hot for some areas, but not. It won't feel above average. You know, it won't be above average. And then as we go, this is going way out to the end of next week on the 21st, 22nd, roughly. You see that signal, even on the national blend of models, putting all those model projections together. You can see there is a trend for some warmer weather. So warm, how much is it going to warm up? I'm not sure. Hopefully it won't be to the level of what that one run of the European model was showing. But I would keep an eye on that and see, like, I'm just gonna keep an eye for sure, because that could mean a heat wave. It's just a little too soon to tell, but we'll start watching the trends on that. Anyways, that's all I have for today. I've talked for way too long, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you next time.